What the hell? Do not disturb.
I can't join IETF.
Yeah, so it's not just me, right?
Yeah.
I'm on hotel. I was trying network. All right, forgive me while I. Yeah, I have some like seriously bad. Oh, no, I'm back on now. All right, let's see what happens. All right. I'm going to share some pre-planned slides. Share. All right, we're back in business. All right, we got a minute. I guess we should make sure that Sergio's here since he's kind of the show. There he is. We got about 6 people in the room, some of the usual suspects, so that's good. Let's get going. Welcome to WISH at IETF 115. Yep, sure, I can eat the mic. All right, welcome to IETF 115, the WISH session. I'm one of the chairs, Sean. Niels, are you able to come off?
Hi, Niels, I'm the other co-chair.
All right, let's move on to the good stuff. This is some meeting tips. Please use the MeetEcho tool to be able to log in. That's how we're going to do attendance. So next time we can make sure we get the biggest possible room that we can get. There are about 7 or 8 people in here, so we won't get the biggest room, but that's also how we're going to use the queue to manage the queue to get people in and out to make sure that the remote presenters are and participants are actually equally supported. All right, so next we got the IETF note. Well, it's Thursday. Hopefully you've seen this before. This is primarily, if you know about IPR, say something. If you can't say anything, that's all right. Just don't say anything. And there's some other things about anti-harassment, code of conduct, etc. But we'll go into that a little bit more now. This is kind of the code of conduct guidelines. This working group has not had any of these problems, which is nice. To basically treat everybody with respect, kind of use your head, find the best solution for the whole of the internet. I'll let you read those. So the next slide, if it will show it, is the mask policy. Everyone in here is masked up. If you're remote, do what you want. But when you're here, you need to have a mask on. Unless you do actually get up here to talk and you're 6 feet away, no need, but I think we're good. All right, the agenda, pretty straightforward. The only thing that we really got to pause here for is we need a note taker. Anybody want to do me a favor and take notes? We don't need a play-by-play, but we do need some notes. Dun, dun, dun. Dun, dun, dun. All right, well, I guess between Niels and I, we'll figure it out. We're basically just going to note the actual action items. Basically, we got one. Sorry?
Sounds good. Yep, I will try to take some notes from you.
Yeah, we can figure it out between the two of us. I don't think it's going to be that much discussion, hopefully. We really got one thing on tap, which is our working group draft, which is Wish Whip. We're going to let Sergio go through, I think, like one issue. So we got about 10 minutes assigned for that. And then we have 20 minutes to talk about WEP. And the rest of the time is kind of to talk about the future and the way forward. And to note, if you were at dispatch, you've probably seen some of the slides that Sergio is going to talk about. But, again, we're here doing our thing. So we're kind of maybe doing some of the dispatch process. Sergio, do you want to run the slides or do you want me to do it and you just say next?
I mean, whatever you want. I mean, I'm happy both ways.
All right, let me try to see if I can get them loaded up here and make this work. Of course, it's slow as close deck. Let's see if that works. Change deck. Come on, computer. All right, it's doing something now. Unable to connect to server. Not great. All right, maybe it's better if you try to run them because I'm having some network connections issues. So I'm hoping if you do that, because they're loaded up, you ought to be able to load them. I don't know, Niels, if there's any way you can come to the rescue here, but I'm unfortunately not able to connect.
I have them here locally available, so in worst case, I could.
There we go. Great. All right, over to you, Sergio.
Yeah, I think that I have been the one that I'm sharing, so this is new for me. But that's this great. So this is we will first start with the latest version of the WIP draft. That is the 5 version. So the changes between the title is wrong. It should be the changes from 04 to 05. Mainly was about some minor feedback I have received and some of the additional changes. Some of them that are maybe wrong. So we have added the asset post header in the option responses, so we can notify that we allow receiving application SDP in the post request. We have added also the asset patch into 101 created responses, but I think that this is wrong. I have sent an email yesterday to the mailing list because I think that the way that the draft is reading right now, we said that in the 201 response, we are going to put the asset patch with the SDP fragment MIME type, but this, if the asset patch header is for the URL for that the post was sent and not for the one in the location. So I think that this is wrong and has to be reverted. But I will like to get some feedback probably from Adam that is or some HTTP or someone with a deeper knowledge of HTTP to see if this has to be reverted because it is incorrect or not. So the other changes is that mostly there were clarifications. So if the web resource does not support the patch method at all, either for IETF restarts or trickle eyes, it should return a 501. Also, we have another clarification on when the ETAG was mandatory and when it is optional. And also when the ICE candidates were optional in the response of the 200 OK response. We have also added a note about the calling order of set local description and the HTTP post request to avoid ICE restarts. Also, we have added that the preferred options to configure ICE is to use the information returned in the 201 response and not to rely on the options on making an option request to the web server if it is not really mandatory for the client because it does not support to update the configuration, the ICE server configuration once after the set local description has been created. And also there has been fixes in the example to make it so it was coherent in all the document. And also we have made the ETAG an opaque value, so to avoid misinterpretation by implementers and thinking that it has to have some value when it is not meant to have any sense. Also, I have added the IANA registrations based on their feedback, and also add an acknowledgement section. So this is all the changes that has been done in the latest draft. I think that all of them has been already reviewed and agreed on either GitHub or the mailing list. But I mean, if there is any issue with any of these changes, I mean, just let me know, or just raise a comment in either in GitHub or when we do the working group last call. So the last slide is about the next steps, that we only have to check the correctness of the asset patch response, and if it is not correct, just revert the changes so it is removed from the draft. There are pending minor editorial fixes in the GitHub draft that are not in the 05 draft, because I have noticed it after publishing it. So when we have checked the asset patch, and I will just submit a 06 version, and then I think that we should do the working group last call on it. I hope that if we can have the asset patch check either during this meeting or today or tomorrow, I can do I can submit the new draft during this next week, so we can have the working group last call as soon as possible.
Yeah, you beat me to it. I was going to ask you when we were going to get that. So if we're going to get it in the next couple of days, I would love to be able to go ahead and work group last call this starting next week. I might give it a little extra longer than 2-week working group last call because of some major American holidays, which most people will be MIA on. But definitely, I would like to try to, if you can promise me that you'll get it done, we can get the working group last call started next week, and we can end it sometime in early December. I think that would be fantastic.
Yep.
Are there any objections to that path? Of course, can't see the jab room or anything because my network connection is shot. So unless we see anything, we're gonna go. Okay, let's proceed with that path, Sergio, and
okay.
we can switch over to WEP.
Okay, let me see if
And again, so we're kind of begging forgiveness from the working group, because technically this isn't in scope, but since we have you here and we have been talking about this a little bit, we're hoping you're willing to indulge the overstepping of the bounds of the charter while we have this discussion.
I'm trying to publish it again. Not sure exactly. Slide.
Oh, now it's back.
I'm not sure if I think I need to. I have asked for to be able to present again, but I don't see okay.
Yeah.
The one comment from the Jabber sounds good to me from Adam. So.
Good. Thank you, Adam. I expect a thorough review of -06 when it comes out during working group last call. Appreciate it.
He also says he'll reply in a bit after he posts the accept issue. So.
Excellent.
Okay, so I wanted to do on last meeting, but we didn't have time for it, so I'm just mostly going to present the same slides that I did I presented for last meeting, but with minor updates. First, I know that egress is explicitly out of the scope of the working group, but also right now the current draft of WEP is reuse most of the mechanism that has been put in place for WEP, and the first draft was mainly just replacing WIP by web, and that's all that I did for creating the first wrap. And so why do we need web? Why do we need to handle the play-by side of the streaming with WebRTC? First, because we are seeing that, at least in my side, I've seen that quite a lot of trend lately to be able to have interoperability between WebRTC services and product, and mostly I see also a trend that is mostly about having backup solutions that, for example, being able to switch from WebRTC provider to another if there is any downtime in any of them, and also to avoid the service lock-in. So you can have multiple, or you can rely on multiple WebRTC services or providers without having to be logged in. So this is this was not the one of the initial goals for the when I brought a web. Since I have the drafting, I see a lot of traction in that regard. Also, there are other benefits, like, for example, we can reuse the player software that can be integrated easily. I mean, there is, for example, with MPEG DAS or something like that, you don't have to write your own player. You just use whatever player is available, and there is quite a lot of versions, either open source of closed source, that allows to have a much better user experience than if you build your own. And also, this protocol will allow integration with MPEG DAS. For example, there has been a report, and when there has been a joint effort about in MPEG DAS-IF to be able to have like a common player that could use both MPEG DAS and WebRTC. When you will use WebRTC for the live version of the stream, and you can use the DAS version to use the timesheet version of the stream, so you can start watching the one event in live, but you can go back in time and connect to the MPEG DAS stream that it is has. When you can just select from what time you want to watch the stream and do it seamless in the same player. And also, there is also one very important piece that it is while in traditional WebRTC services, we are running all the services in either in a native application or in a full browsers. There are some devices that don't support WebRTC very well. For example, like smart TVs, when it is going to be much easier to try to get the TV vendors to support just the subset of WebRTC by just having to provide to be able to play web streams and not have to provide the full flavor APIs that it is much difficult to maintain and test and make available in their APIs. So, and the last thing is that WIP and web could be used together for service interoperability. So you have a WIP service and a web service. You can try to just create a gateway that both do the interoperability between both. So the question is if we should recharge these working groups to include also egress. As Sin has said, I presented it in this patch on Monday. And I think that the consensus was that we should, or the WIS working group should be able to decide if we want to recharter the working group or not, and we don't have to go back to this patch and to try to find a way. So whatever we decide, we are free to decide if we want to change the scope of the charter and adopt the web the protocol as a working group item.
So Adam, let me just jump in here real quick. So I guess I just want to say that I completely agree with the way Sergio characterized. We went to dispatch and they were like, why are you coming to us? You're already a working group. You can just recharter. But I think in other instances, they might have said, why didn't you come to us if you rechartered? So we kind of got a free pass, essentially. If the working group decides that we would like to recharter, I think then we just basically have to convince the AD that's the right thing to do and present good text. So I think that was a fair characterization of what actually happened earlier. So Adam?
You're mute.
Unfortunately, I can be of no help because I'm off the network again. Stupid.
I can't turn on Adam's microphone remotely either. So
Yeah.
actually, well, down there.
No, I'm back
Yeah.
now.
Oh,
All right. Well, maybe we'll try to loop back to Adam. And Jonathan's in the room, and so is Harold. So maybe we can give him a little bit of time.
Actually, well, Adam, are you audible now, or should I go ahead?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, we can. Great.
All right. I think it did not survive a device switch earlier in the conference. Sorry about that. So I'm going to do a full 180 from what I said last time we had this discussion and say that I now support, although somewhat reluctantly, the notion of rechartering to do the web work. I still have the same concerns last time about the number of people that it looks like we're going to be able to attract to actually work on this. I'm not going to have more cycles than I did this first time around to help move the work along. And the volume of discussion on the list is still rather slow, but I am definitely seeing a lot of interest in the industry for this, and people are moving forward with the protocol as specified. I see like major service providers already deploying this in like beta trials. And I think it would be far, far better to have, a written down and actually ratified version of the protocol as opposed to just having things based on a draft. And I can't imagine a better place to do that than this working group. So again, it's like, I would love if we could somehow bring these folks into the IETF to help move this work forward. And so if folks have ideas about how to make that happen, it would be great. But yeah, it's like I said, I now support adding this to the WISH charter.
Okay, great. Jonathan?
Yeah, Jonathan Lennox. I mean, I think your analogy with Dash has somewhat convinced me. I was sort of dubious before, but I think sort of the idea that in browsers, this is just implemented in JavaScript, though there could be libraries for it, but for embedded things, it can be implemented for real, which is easier than letting them run arbitrary JavaScript. That seems reasonable. My concern, I mean, and I think your regular expression at the second bullet is certainly a very easy thing to do. My worry is how much more do we need? In particular, if we need to be, feature equivalent to Dash, and basically have people say, well, in Dash, if I'm doing it over Dash, I can do, subtitles. I need to be able to do subtitles in WEP. Well, that's just one example off the top of my head. I don't know everything that's in Dash. That's my worry if we end up having to shovel everything in there to get, and how much more work that's going to be. I think if this is just your regular expression, this is very easy and it's a sort of a no-brainer, and I see the benefit to it, but I'm worried about how much the scope is going to increase.
Yeah, in fact, this is in one of my latest slides about what is the delta that we have to add from web to WIC, because as you have said, there are some functionalities that are specific to playback that we have not worried yet in the ingest size. So this is already covered also in the slides later on.
Harald Alvestrand. This seems to be a simple specification for doing a simple job. We have other groups like MOC who are trying to build the grand total solution of changing everything so that we can achieve things we cannot do. But this is a simple tool for a simple job. Simple tools need specifications. We should specify it. Go ahead.
All right, Timothy?
Yeah, Tim Panton here. I'm in favor of us doing this. I think particularly the embedded stuff makes sense. I have a slight preference for us doing it after we've got WIP out the way. I kind of, is there a problem with sequencing it so that we don't change the charter until we get WIP out the door?
And by out the door, do you mean like RFC number and published, or do you mean like through the ISG? Or public?
I'm prepared to negotiate on that, but I just feel like if we're short of cycles, then trying to do two things at once seems suicidal.
Okay, so here's what I'm hoping to happen is that Sergio is going to pump out a draft here in the next couple of days. We're going to run a working group last call. When that working group last call completes, Niels and I are going to put our head together and flip a coin and figure out who's going to be the shepherd. And we're going to push it forward out of the working group. And at that point, we can start to do charter revisions to look at that, because it'll take weeks for that to happen as well. So if that is kind of if we do it at that
Actually,
kind of pace, does that kind of work?
Sean, I have I've done or started the shepherding for the wish draft already. So
so that takes one step out of the way.
Exactly.
Thank
so
you.
like I'm waiting basically for version 06, and then
We're going to
fully
do it.
should be done quickly.
I mean, I'm thinking like in the new year, we will start we'll put up a GitHub repo, we'll put in the original charter, and then people can start whacking away at making changes. And so I'm hoping that the changes that we would get via the director reviews and through the ISG won't be earth shattering to this. So I'm hoping that we won't have a cycle problem, but I do acknowledge that we don't want to do too many things at once here, because we'll just run out of cycles from people. So let's try to, what we'll do is we'll start the recharting process after we get the document out the door. But nothing to say that we can't keep talking about this actually on the list if people do have cycles. Piers?
Yeah, it seems like the integration with Dash can potentially get fairly complicated, as mentioned. Some of the issues around sort of timestamps in media and how you do subtitles and everything. In some ways, it seems that's potentially a more nasty sort of part to it, whether it be pulled apart and add it as a separate thing. I don't know, but not quite sure how it would separate out, but it might get, because we're involved in that Dash IF report that started to try to tackle some of these issues, but then it seemed like there was quite a few things to deal with there. I don't know what you think, Sergio.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to have the basic media flows established with web, at least probably on the first draft, just because mainly we have already made most of the work in web, so just having it in web seems like a very easy lift. Then I expect when we are able to have like a first version of web, we can go, for example, back to the SIF and see if adding support for example, subtitles or changing different or having multiple audio languages and being able to switch between them makes sense to be done like within the web specification, or we will have to, or if it would be better to be reuse some of the MPEG DAS stuff, for example, the MPD, and try to integrate both protocols together so we can reuse some of them. So I don't know yet what is the best option, but I think that if we get some momentum having the web protocol in draft are specified, it will be much easier to get advanced on those topics. So I will try to, or my proposal would be not to same thing that we have done with WIP. Don't make these other features be a blocker about having a first version of web or for example, early drafts, and try to see if we can, for example, add them later on with extensions, either if it is via HTTP REST interface or it is by adding data channel support for web. But I think that it is also that they are going to be like add-ons that we can negotiate, and it is not really like a block stopper to have them in the web standard to be able to use them and it to be adopted by the industry.
Okay. Yeah. I think it sounds reasonable, I guess, because you've got sort of media type descriptions. So you've got SDP trying to map that to the media descriptions within Dash, and also then you've got the time frame aspects around the Dash MPD that doesn't really have a kind of an analogy in the WebRTC world, I think, in terms of description. Okay. Yeah.
All right. I think it's probably not a good use of our time to actually slap up the charter and start to edit it. I think that's maybe a complete waste of time. So I think we should set everyone free here, give them 30 minutes back of their lives, unless there's something else to discuss. I
Well,
don't. Are there?
Yeah, I mean, I can
sorry.
go.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I actually had to look. So if there are more, we can proceed because we have 30 more minutes of time. So let's make sure that we.
I mean, I think that most of the discussion has been already covering some parts of the slides, but I mean, I think that it would be great if we can go through them, because I think that we can spend this time to discuss some of the items. So
absolutely, go ahead.
Yeah. So basically, the web protocol is basically the same thing that as WIP. So we have the web player send an HTTP post with the HTTP offer, then the endpoint return an HTTP answer with the 201 response, and then everything the request and the ISO and the DTLS is established with the media server, and the RTCP flow start to go from the media server to the web player. There has been some discussion that I don't know if this is the best thing to do or not, because we don't want to have two different ways of operating in the draft. So the current draft also covers it, but I don't know if we want to remove it or not. That it was said that there was also like an interest of having the media server or the server the service to be able to provide the SDP offer. So the player does not need to know, for example, if you want to establish an audio and video session or only audio. And also there was some claim that some implementation don't support create offers. So, and also this will allow WIP and web interoperability. There are some pros with this for this approach, that it is that, for example, the turn server configuration would be solved, because you will be able to get the iService before having to send the SDP answer. But there is a big con, at least from my side, that it is that the media server does not actually know what codecs may be used by the stream when it is established, because, for example, at least in Millicast, we allow the players to connect before the actual stream is started, and the publication can choose whatever codecs they use. So we are able to switch dynamically between the codecs. So if it is difficult for us, at least, to provide an SDP offer with to the player, because we will just have to provide a list of all the potential codec that exists, in fact. So this is one point that if we will need to decide if we want to support it or not. Yes, and so I think this one. No, yep. So what's missing, as Jonathan, I think that it was Jonathan the one that said that. So as Jonathan said, the web has more requirements in terms of functionality than WIP. For example, we can do. I think that the good thing is that we have a good or does we can check what are the missing functionalities by checking what does provide, because we should try to be like future we should be able to provide the same functionality as does provide. That, for example, would be about having multi-languages in audio, to be able to do remote base and mute, to avoid having wasting resources if the player is paused, to support subtitles and live captionings, supporting metadata specifically, for example, for timestamping and having like the SMTPA timestamps, and also how to do client-side resolution and quality selection. For example, to be able to have, even if the service is doing layer switching between simulcast or SBC, to be able to allow the client to know which layers are available, and, for example, to just say that send me a lower resolution, even if if I am able to do a higher one. So I think that this can be implemented as add-ons to the web specifications, and they don't change what we are going to implement. So we can add it on top, and probably as a optional and feature that we can negotiate.
Yeah, Jonathan Lennox, I think, sorry, I should have put myself in the queue. I apologize. I think now I think sort of the big picture consequence of this is a lot of these things, possibly everything but subtitles, is going to require fresh offer answers. So we're going to need general fresh offer answers in a bunch of places, not just offer answers for ICE restart. So that's going to be, a fairly notable change to the protocol. I think that's something we're going to need to think about. And I guess the question is, are you going to support, can we do this entirely with client initiated offer answer, or does it have to be, is there some place where where the server decides, hey, we need a fresh offer answer? Because that's going to be even more complicated, because you need to have some sort of polling to notify of that.
Well, we can use data channels.
Yeah, and then I think that's probably for subtitles, you'd probably want to do something over data channel, but I don't know the details. And we need to, somebody on the chat commented that there's, the MP4 container does, everything, amazing number of different things. The question is, which one of those things, how many of those things do we actually need?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Thanks. Niels?
Niels Omer as an individual, just clarification on the slide where you said like whether we should support reversing the offer answer roles.
Mm-hmm.
If you connect the players first, don't you run into the problem that if the web client then later connects, you might still run into the problem that like you have codec mismatch, or you're like, how are you going to enforce from the server side that basically the one codec which would get set?
I mean, but if the player sends the SDP offer and they don't, for example, you don't support AB1, I mean, I cannot do much. At least, I mean, I can try to even do transcoding in the server side, but I mean, the server will, the player will send me all that it supports. So it is, if I run into this problem.
But I'm saying like if you connect the web players and you have negotiated something with them, there's no guarantee that whatever you have negotiated with them will match with the wish player if it connects later, basically, or.
Yeah, but
so what I'm trying to say, like basically switching the roles doesn't take away that problem. If maybe I'm misunderstanding something here.
Yeah. I mean, we have the same problem regardless of who sends the offer first.
Okay, that was all.
Yeah, Tim Hansen, couple of things. I don't like the switching of the answer. I don't believe the purported benefits. Like, you're never going to be able to connect a WIP to a WEP without something in the middle anyway. And so saying that it makes it easier, I think, is kind of artificial, to be honest. I think it complicates the things somewhat unnecessarily. So I'm kind of not. I don't buy that, and it adds a round trip, of course. So I don't buy that, and I think the second thing here, the kind of the additional features, I think data channels are the way to go. And even if you end up needing to renegotiate, you can renegotiate over the data channel. So, and it's worth, I mean, we've done a ton of stuff where we use the label of the data channel to indicate what the purpose of that channel is. So you don't have to, like, you know, it's sort of, you don't have to agree it in the SDP. You can just say there will be data channels, and then those data channels arrive and they have meanings based on their, you know, web-subtitle-en might be the title of the label of the channel, and then you know what it is. So I think we can get a long way towards these sorts of features without needing to do another round of offer answer. And even if we have to do another round of offer answer to add a track or something, you can do that negotiation over a spare and negotiating data channel. So you can create a data channel for doing offer answer over, and you can do offer answer over that, and keep your HTTP server out of the loop because it doesn't need to be in it. Thanks.
Harald Alvestron, just encouraging scope limiting. I don't think we need to specify every feature of Dash as a feature of web. That will just lead to, well, pissing contest. But there are a number of things that we could write specs for that would be applicable in any WebRTC context. Subtitles especially.
Yep.
And the client-side resolution quality selection thing. But they don't need to be in web. So I would encourage you to go for a very simple web, and let's add features when we need them, and if possible, use them in all contexts where WebRTC are applicable.
Yeah, I agree with that. For example, I already have been working, for example, in a solution for subtitles for WIP. That obviously this will have to be done somewhere else, probably in ABT Core or in music, and then we could reuse the work here. So that was also my goal. So I think that having a full set of functionality is like like the goal for me for my service, but they don't need to be all done in web.
Okay. Jonathan Lennox again. Yeah, I think the sort of subtlety here is I mean, we have, you know, a number of layers of indirection here, right? I mean, you know, web uses WebRTC, WebRTC uses SDP offer answer, SDP offer answer uses SDP, and, you know, and I think for a lot of these things, yes, somewhere in the 30-year history of SDP, there have been solutions defined for these. Are they good? I don't know. Are they implemented in browsers? No. Could they be implemented in browsers? Probably. Will they be? Ask Harold. But I mean, if you say, hey, if we add this to WebRTC, so it might just be a matter of not even defining new solutions, but finding, like Adam mentioned, there is an RTP payload for TTML. I don't know if it's quite solves our problem, but probably roughly does. So maybe you just say, hey, browsers, add this TTML to your WebRTC stacks, and you know, and that will, and there's an actual use case for this because we want to be able to do this for, you know, Live Dash, and I think that's a use case that browsers are actually interested in. So, but yeah, I think this might just be a matter of scouring the RFC archive rather than defining new work.
Yeah, just forgot what I was going to say. Something around, yeah, okay. I can't quite think what I was going to say. Yeah, the data channel thing. So I just sort of WebRTC, whether you want to sort of stay with just using the WebRTC data channel, or whether you want to be kind of open to using just WebSocket. So in some senses, maybe a higher level abstraction when one talks about using it. Again, it's something that kind of came out of the work, the -IF thing. I mean, I guess because, well, I guess with the sort of these types of approaches we're using Dash, typically the data channel approach isn't necessarily kind of needed, because it's often not a peer-to-peer type of communication. But I guess it doesn't have to be, but just a thought really as to whether one wants to sort of allow that flexibility as opposed to just stipulating just use the data channel in WebRTC.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have I have not started to work on a solution, and I don't have checked how this implemented with MPEG does, but I think that there is no limitation about using WebSocket or Web Data Channel at the moment. Probably when we start to check it, we will see that it makes more sense to use one on another, or maybe probably with web makes more sense to use data channels. But if we are integrated with DAS, maybe it's easier to have like a separate WebSocket and a web connection that are not, I don't know yet. So, but yes, I mean, I don't think that we should just close ourselves to just a single set of solutions.
So coming back on the data channel thing, turns out the data channel API looks very like the WebSocket API in the browser. So actually, we've done a few things where you can shim one on top of the other, and the JavaScript author actually doesn't know which it is and doesn't care, because the semantics are pretty similar. The open semantics are different, but once it's open, it's pretty indistinguishable, to be honest. So you can fake one with the other. So you might not actually need to kind of enforce that at the client side. Obviously, at the server side, it's completely different. And I think that's where you're going to come up against. It's like, where does this metadata get generated? Does it get generated kind of close to the media server where your media is coming from? Is it tied to that? In which case, data channels is the right path. Whereas if it's coming from, where your HTTP request went, then WebSockets is the right path. And so I think you're going to fight, because the media server is probably a long way back behind some NAT, whereas your web server is out the front. So I think like which you end up choosing is going to be almost an architectural decision rather than anything else. But yeah, I mean, our experience is that from the client side, you almost can't tell the difference between them.
We seem to have drained the queue. All right.
Do we want to ask now for? I think we had on the agenda the question whether regarding the rechartering. I heard lots of support for it, but
is there anyone that would like to does not want us to try to recharter? That I would be interested in why. All right, so I think what we're going to do is we're going to proceed forward with the WIP draft to get it out the door, get a working group last call going. Then the chairs will set up a repo. We will throw in the charter and we'll start editing it. And we'll invite everyone to provide issues and pull requests on the charter, and then we will proceed forward. And with that, I think we'll draw this meeting to a close unless there's anybody else that has any other business that they would like to add at the last second here. Going once, going twice. Sold as the techno music starts to pound in the background. Everyone have a good night. Thank you very much.
See you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye bye.
Thanks, Sergio. Thank you very much, Sergio.
Bye.
And thanks, Niels, for helping me out with my network connection problems.
No worries. These can do remotely. I'm glad my internet held up.